Hey, what's up everybody, and welcome back to another episode of News Dose, where I keep you up to date with all of the latest gaming news, and we have some new information on Ori and the Will of Wisps. I have continuously said that Ori and the Blind Forest is one of, if not the best ever Metroidvania game, so yeah, I'm pretty excited for the sequel. And the creative director Thomas Mahler posted a statement today that I would say is very exciting, which we'll get to here in just a moment. Plus, we have plenty of other stuff to talk about as well, including Project xCloud finally coming to iOS, the state of Nioh 2, new Nintendo games coming to Nintendo Online, a Call of Duty Battle Royale leak, and more, so keep watching to hear all about that. But before we talk about those, let's talk about E3. E3 has had a bit of an interesting couple of years, and it really started in 2019 when Sony surprised the game industry when they announced they were skipping E3. This was a shock for fans, but a lot of people just assumed they were not going to E3 in 2019 because they didn't have much to show. But once again in 2020, they are yet again skipping E3. Now we know this time around that Sony has stuff to show, considering the PlayStation 5 is set to release during the holiday of 2020. So there really wasn't some excuse this time around, as E3 would have been a great place to talk about the PlayStation 5. Now though, we have Geoff Keighley, the Coliseum producer, most known for the Game Awards, is also skipping out on E3. Keighley isn't being super direct as to the reason why he's not attending E3, but rather he is just saying he is uncomfortable with ESA's plans this year. Now, I don't think that we should all of a sudden be doom and gloom on E3 just because Keighley isn't showing up. I mean, he doesn't make games, and that is what E3 is about first and foremost. I mean, it's not a great sign, but as a consumer, our number one focus should be on great games showing up at E3 and what publishers have to announce, and that's why I want to dive deeper into this whole E3 thing. The thing is, E3 is changing to a certain extent. As a fan of gaming, I love E3, and it's basically a big holiday for me. To see the biggest publishers put out all these huge announcements all in a few days' time is amazing, so when Sony bailed out on E3, I was upset, as they are a big part of E3. Them not being there is taking something away from me as a fan of gaming. However, with how media works today, I do think that these publishers have to ask themselves on whether or not E3 is even worth it when they can just kind of go and do their own thing and put a stream online or some kind of video where people will tune in and share it across social media. This is kind of how Nintendo does it now. E3 is incredibly expensive, and ESA has had some issues recently with not just the price but also security. Even this list I'm going to show you now was apparently leaked online, but yes, the E3 participating companies was revealed today on the E3 website, with several notable publishers missing, though I think it has to be incomplete because it was missing both Xbox and Nintendo, and they have confirmed they'll be there. Xbox has already announced a long time ago they're going to be at E3, so why isn't their name on the list? And that is kind of what I was alluding to just a moment ago. Yes, Xbox will be at E3, and that is confirmed. However, Xbox is actually not in the ESA building, as Microsoft owns their own theater next door. So why would Microsoft pay extra money to ESA when they can just use their own building? They still refer to this as E3, and I think it's considered a part of E3, but again, they're not in the same building. I don't know how all that works with ESA and using the name E3, but I would assume that's why Xbox is not on the attending list, even though they are technically a part of E3. And then you have Nintendo, which also they've confirmed they will be at E3. Nintendo by this point has shifted their events over to Nintendo Direct, which they air during the time of E3, and they have been doing that for a long time. They do booths at E3 though and all that, but the actual event is once again their own, and that is what most people is going to see. Nonetheless, they have confirmed they will be at E3 as well. Then you have Sony, and they're kind of the odd one out here. They did skip E3 last year, and they didn't host any kind of event at all. However, I wouldn't be surprised if Sony also did a State of Play right around the time of E3. It may not be the exact day of E3, but I think it will be around that time frame. So this is what I mean when I say E3 is changing. these publishers can now do their own thing. Xbox uses the Microsoft Theater, Nintendo does a Nintendo Direct and no longer has a stage presence, and if Sony does something, I think it will be similar to how Nintendo does things, and just do a state of play. Now, there is several publishers that still do go to E3 as well, including Bethesda, Capcom, Sega, amongst several others, so ESA can still be useful, but honestly, I wouldn't be surprised if more publishers went a different direction. So I think while, yes, Geoff Keighley bailing out on E3 is probably not a good sign, I don't think this is going to have a major impact on E3 as a whole. Both Nintendo and Xbox are still making big announcements without actually being in the E3 building, and I really wouldn't be surprised if Sony has a state of play right around the same time. I'm sure ESA needs to improve and all that, but I still expect E3 to be awesome this year. What about you though? Let me know what you think in the comments below. Moving on, creative director of Moon Studios Thomas Mahler posted about Ori and the Will of Wisps and what we can expect with the highly anticipated sequel to Ori and the Blind Forest, and here there is 3 things to take away from his comment. 1, Ori and the Will of Wisps is a bigger game than Ori and the Blind Forest. Bigger can be defined in numerous different ways, and I'm not saying that it will be larger in scope, but they did have more developers on Will of the Wisps. While Ori and the Blind Forest had around 10 to 15 developers, the sequel instead has 3 to 4 times as much as that. So probably around 40 people. He also notes that while it has the same core experience, that it is an overall fuller experience this time around, and also says that it's what Super Mario Bros. 3 is to the Super Mario Bros. Franchise. This isn't the first time he has said this either, but it essentially means that it could be the game that defines Ori as everything comes together so well, and this is all fantastic to hear. I honestly believe that Ori and the Blind Forest is one of the best Metroidvania games ever made, and really the only Metroidvania that I would put on the same level as Ori and the Blind Forest is Hollow Knight. Though I think that both of those games are great for different reasons, and to hear that Will of Wisps may be even better than Ori and the Blind Forest, yeah, I'm thinking this game may be a sneaky Game of the Year candidate. Seriously can't wait to play this game, and hey, we don't have to wait too much longer as it releases March 11th, so just under 1 month away now. Now, speaking of Xbox related games, we have 2 other Xbox pieces to talk about. I'll try to make this one quick though, but Xbox and Samsung has announced a deal for cloud gaming. Not much has been revealed about this deal just yet, but I think we can assume this is for Project xCloud, which will likely be included in Samsung Galaxy phones moving forward. This will likely be an included app as soon as you boot up the phone, which will be fantastic for Xbox as they try to get more people to use xCloud in the future. Maybe xCloud will even have a few extra features with Galaxy phones, which is one of the most popular Android lines. I actually have a Galaxy phone myself, so I'll be interested to see what this partnership is exactly. And Forza Street will also be releasing on both iOS and Android, and that is the next part of this. Project xCloud is officially coming to iOS, and they're beginning a limited Project xCloud iOS test flight preview. It sounds like this will be very limited considering Apple's policies, and because of that, it will only include Master Chief Collection as of this moment, and it will not have console streaming for the time being. Nonetheless, Apple fans can now join in on the xCloud experience, and as I've said several times by this point, I've had a great experience with it so far. Hopefully you do as well. Now, in other news, and I forgot to talk about this one yesterday, but it's now been revealed how much money Sony spent to acquire Insomniac Games, which was $229 million. Now, that actually isn't a bad price at all, and I would have expected it to be much more expensive than that. I mean, I guess I understand why, because Insomniac doesn't actually have any meaningful intellectual properties. Most of the games they have worked on in the past is owned by other publishers. Spyro, of course, is owned by Activision, Spider-Man is owned by Marvel, and then you have Ratchet and Clank as well as Resistance, and they're owned by Sony. So really the only IP they have of worth is Sunset Overdrive, and it wasn't really a big time seller either. So really Sony is paying for the talent here with Insomniac Games at $229 million, but I still think that is an excellent price considering how talented Insomniac Games is. I mean, they're one of the best developers in the entire industry. I know talent can always leave, but I think they fit well with Sony. They have been a great team in the past with Ratchet, Resistance, and Spider-Man, so it was a good get for Sony at a very good price. Another game linked to Sony, Nioh 2, also has officially gone gold. Nioh 2 is a PlayStation console exclusive which was set to release on March 13th, and now that it has officially gone gold, we no longer have to worry about any kind of delay. Considering all the delays recently, this is very good news to hear. The first Nioh was a really good game, and I'm expecting the sequel to be of the same quality. The release being so close to Ori though, I'll have to probably choose one or the other, but more great games coming is never a bad thing. There was also an apparent leak for Call of Duty Warzone, which is supposed to be a battle royale mode, and right now people are saying it will be free to play, which is a huge deal if this ends up being true. I'm not really a big fan of battle royale games and never really bought into the hype of games like Fortnite or PUBG, but one thing is for sure, it's been a very popular genre, especially as big streamers on Twitch play these type of games. And while Call of Duty has had a battle royale mode in the past with Blackout, this instead will be free to play, which really would allow a ton of people to jump in. Call of Duty is one of the biggest franchises in the entire industry, so I can imagine them shaking up the battle royale space quite a bit. Whether or not it will have staying power is another story, as we have seen games like Apex kind of enter and leave, but again, if this ends up being true, this is a very big deal. Now the last thing I want to talk about real quick is Nintendo Online, as Nintendo has announced the next batch of Nintendo and Super Nintendo games which will be releasing next week on February 19th. This will include 2 Nintendo games, Shadow of the Ninja and Eliminator Boat Duel. It will also include 2 Super Nintendo games, Poppin' Twin B and Smash Tennis. I think it's cool that Nintendo is bringing these games to Nintendo Online, but I don't think these titles are exciting for too many people. I honestly think most people have probably not even heard of these games before, and that's unfortunate because many fans are still waiting on games like Earthbound, Super Mario RPG, Chrono Trigger, and Final Fantasy VI. So yeah, these are probably not the most exciting titles in the world, and considering how long it takes Nintendo to release games on the Nintendo Online service, I can understand fans being a little upset over this. That's not to say that these games are bad, that's not what I'm saying at all, but rather, I think fans just want some of the more popular games on the service first. What about you though? What games would you like to see come over to Nintendo Online? Let me know in the comments below. Anyways though, that's it for this episode, but if you liked the video, don't forget to hit the bell notification and subscribe button for more content just like this. Peace out.